Hi, Abhay, and welcome to this edition of Spotlight. So glad to have you here with us today.
Hi, Dilpreet. Very glad to be here along with you. Uh, I'm sort of excited because I'm Punjab is sort of doing some amazing work, and also coming from the same region, I'm very happy to see the action in the startup ecosystem here.
So glad that we can actually make that difference with you as a partner. So, yes, we need all the support of you, and we hope to be able to drive the culture of innovation and entrepreneurship to the next level in Punjab. Speaking of which, you've done a fabulous job. You launched TikTok too, and you had utmost clarity from the very beginning that you wanted to be an entrepreneur. Um, Tell me a little more about what does, solves for, as well as how did you have that conviction right from the beginning?
Right. So, Dilpreet, to answer your first question, I think so. We're essentially building digital infrastructure for mental health, which means we are adapting telemedicine for a niche field of therapy. Our current product it provides counseling on demand 24/7. Along with it is very clinical in nature because we sort of monitor outcomes very clearly, and it's a field which I think needs a lot of innovation as well. Like because of limited demand up until recently, there has not been a lot of innovation in the space as well. So and the problem itself is huge with uh, the numbers are really staggering. Like the demand supply gap is huge in this field. Like 150 million Indians are in need of mental health support, and we have a very less number of practitioners or facilities which one could visit. And to top it off, you have stigma due to which people do not access help. But the problem is large, and it is very distressing problem at an individual level. Someone who's going through any sort of challenges, and not just at individual level, the entire family gets affected. The friends get affected, and it's sort of less spoken about, but it exists. And so, and perhaps that's the one reason also that we have not, as a society, paid attention to it. And so I think this is a very large problem. So that is something which I wanted to solve. And the reason of me getting into it, being an engineer, was sort of generally things that happened. Along with, there was no plan to get into this space. It's not a very popular space when I got into it. Yeah, I think the journey has been in the sense that after my engineering from IIT Bombay, I had to sort of stay back home because my there was some sickness in the family, and I had responsibilities being the child who could take care, who was in India at that time. And due to that, now coming from Ludhiana, which is sort of and this is back in 2011, so it's a sort of limited city, I would say. uh, Not a lot to do. So I started teaching mathematics to people, so both to IIT aspirants and civil services aspirants. And that's when I also started preparing for civil services because few of my batchmates were doing that, and psychology was one of the easy subjects to say. And so one of the optionals I had at that time was psychology. So that gave me a good theoretical background to the space. But again, I was very insensitive even up till studying psychology for 2 years or so. Very insensitive towards mental health in general, because the problem was even I had not seen it. I never knew this existed. Right? It's always brushed under the carpet. So hadn't seen it closely with any friend or family member as such. But what happened is, at this point, I was offered, to work with a psychiatrist who was wanting to bring social emotion learning for school kids, and that's when I started getting on ground experience by spending time at rehab centers, going to conferences like Down Syndrome Conference, and meeting families of suicide victims, meeting parents of and families of special children. And that were very distressing 2 years of my life. I from Because you had like a very rosy picture of the world until this point, and suddenly you're exposed to this massive problem which exists, and you could see people crying, and like it was very moving for me. For a long time I could not I was not able to get over the shock myself. And that is how I started thinking that this needs to be solved. And this was something so distressing for me personally. Like once you see something like this, you can't unsee this, right? And that's how I got into it. I thought I need to solve it, and I need to solve it at scale. So that's how, and coming from a technology background, I think it becomes rather, you know, your thought process is aligned towards that. So that's how I, started working on TikTok too. I did not, expect to stay in the space for so long. I thought I'll, build something and which could sort of take care of itself. But I think the problem is so massive. Uh, I continue to do so, and I'm enjoying it. It's very satisfactory. I think, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you because you're genuinely making a difference to people's lives in all ways, So thank you so much for doing that. Abhay, you went in for an MBA after you decided that you wanted to do something of your own. And a lot of people grapple with that decision, whether an MBA really adds value or it doesn't. How did you think about this, and what difference did it make for you in your journey?
Yeah, I think one thing which I realized, because the previous work which where I was working with this psychiatrist, we were trying to bring in social emotion learning. I think I till that point I only had sense of products, right? But that was the time when I also got sense of business, and we effectively, like, to say, like, we failed in that venture, or it has pivoted to a smaller clinic now. Uh, but I think the failure was largely on business side, not on the product side, and this is lack of understanding, my lack of understanding, and perhaps the team also was not very equipped with, I would say, business knowledge to say. And I think that is where the failure happened, and I could see that that difference between, because I think till a long time I never knew the difference between a product and a company, although like it's very often spoken about, but I really didn't know that. And when I got on ground and did this and saw that business failure happening, and where the product was pretty nice, I would say. Then I realized, one is like you need that sort of business knowledge, and that business knowledge is actually, I think, comes very very handy. But again, like ISB being one of the places which is the best sort of in the country, you're yourself from ISB, so you know that. And so I decided that let's do this, and I did it from Mohali campus. And the reason is also because in this region we have a lot of good mental health practitioners. Like, we have good universities for psychologists and psychiatrists as well. So this is a lot of manpower as well. So it was an easy decision for me to go for an MBA at that point, and I think it was the right decision. And especially with ISB, I also got exposure to a lot of international faculty, which brought in international perspective on mental health, which I was sort of again. I mean, I would read about it, but now here, you're listening to somebody who's in that, cultural, because culture plays a massive role in mental well-being, how you approach the problem. So that sort of insights also were helpful, but primarily I would say business knowledge is something which I think many people perhaps, I think, have it by the gut, but I did not have it. So it sort of helped me, in the journey to build TikTok too.
Wonderful. And speaking of business, Abhay, you have to bring the whole ecosystem together on TikTok too. On one side, you need the practitioners. On one side, you need the demand for
Yeah.
people, which is itself challenging to come forward and seek help on these issues. Which one do you solve for? A lot of businesses, again, think whether should I supply or demand? Which one do I build first?
Yeah.
How do you go about it, and what are your learnings on that?
My first, I think, if many budding entrepreneurs are watching, I think I would suggest, do not build a two-sided platform if it's your first venture. I had studied about two-sided platforms and the challenges which come across, but I could not again empathize with it. I had never seen it. I've not worked with any two-sided platform earlier, so did not know what it means. What we were focused initially was only on the demand side, and the reason for that was also we were not two-sided by then. We had like few psychologists who were serving a demand side, and we were heavily focused on demand side. And the reason for that was also, I think, one thing we were trying to establish is it adding value? We didn't even have a business model, but we just wanted to see that is it adding value, right? And so that we were determining by various factors like engagement and progress with happening with therapy, and that is what we were solving for. And so demand was the first thing which we solved, but later on, we when we made it a two-sided platform where any practitioner could come and practice, we had new issues. Like, one is like scaling. Like, you need to grow both sides parallelly, which is a challenge if you have to source both sides. Fortunately for us, the good thing happened is that we had a lot of psychologists by default. The demand was increasing, so but we just had to balance it out. and we had the ways to limit how many people could access help, and we still at times do apply those limits. Uh, to grow it together. The other part of the problem in a two-sided platform is that you need to add value not just to one side but to both sides. Because if you're not adding value to, say, the doctor or the practitioner or the psychologist who's on the platform, you will start noticing a lot of leakages. You can be a punitive platform by sort of imposing fines or those sort of punitive measures, but I think that's sort of a wrong approach. You need to sort of be attracting that side, and to do that, I think if you make their life easier by solving for the problems or improving their efficiencies, helping them handle more clients at a time, if you solve for their problems, and so you need to essentially solve for both, and at times these are conflicting. What your demand side is wanting, your supply side perhaps is not wanting, right? And you really need to walk that fine balance. And what seemingly appears conflicting in the beginning, but if you really dig deep down, I think there are solutions which sort of satisfy both sides. So these are things we've learned along the way and still learning. I mean, two-sided platforms, we are still like a small size platform. Like, I think when we scale up higher, we would face additional problems, but yeah. So
Great. While I'd love to speak more to you because it's very insightful to learn from you, I just have one last question, which is you've grown with grants, right? You bagged grants. Some quick tips about how to go about getting grants.
I think we got lucky also in that sense, but I think just be very focused on what you're doing. Like, if you're solving the problem, fortunately, the opportunities in India are rising. A lot of people are there. Governments are very serious. Public-private partnerships are happening, so the money is there. If somebody is solving problem, there are in fact like even individual investors, the angels are there to support you. So I think if you're solving a problem, and you will have like that opportunity and support you will receive. For us, what happened was during COVID time, mental health issues started rising. There were a lot of funds around COVID which wanted to give money to someone who's solving for mental health, and we have very few solutions like TickTalkTo. Up until that point, if they were even fewer, I think now they've started rising again. But very few solutions around mental health, and effectively there was very few competition there. So because the competition was lower, and the governments are wanting to spend money, so we got what we wanted, and that actually helped us grow. But although when we started, COVID increased the demand and supply. I mean, we were not really sure like, do we have enough money to really sustain ourselves for the next 6 months? But the help came along. So I think be very focused. If you're solving a problem, you're adding value. I think society rewards you. So, but of course, you have to like keep seeking those opportunities as well. You can't be passive in that. Like, you have to actively engage with the the stakeholders of the ecosystem. And if you're engaging, you need to tell them what challenges you're facing. Somebody shows up and they'll help you out.
Thank you so much, Abhay. It's wonderful speaking with you. And there's a lot to learn from your conversations. They've been very enriching for me. So thank you so much, and for being a genuine difference maker. Thank you.
Thank you, Dilprada. Thank you for the kind words. I enjoyed this. Looking forward to speak to you soon. Take care.
Pleasure as well. Thank you.